it is Thursday, October 15th. We are heading into week 3 of Preptober, which is crazy. I can't even believe I'm saying that. And we're also starting another vlog in my car. It's 3:13 right now, and I'm about to head to Barnes & Noble over in the Woodlands area. I really want Flower Child, so I'm placing an order for that. And just wanted to pop into Barnes & Noble, see what's going on. But yeah, I'm getting a late start today because I actually had an early start this morning because my smoke detector woke me up at 5:30 a.m. and I had to change the battery. So I ended up falling back asleep, and that's why I'm eating lunch, or about to go eat lunch, at 3:15 in the afternoon. But you know what? It's all good. I am living for the retro look right now, so I just feel like this is fall. I have a hole in my stocking. Just in case you were wondering, yes, there is a reason why I don't normally film when we're in the dark of the moon. I'm filming this right before the new moon in Libra. I get a little weird, and also Mercury's retrograde as well. So, also it looks like it might rain earlier than forecasted, so that's exciting. I'm gonna dig into this, and then we're going to Barnes & Noble. So get ready for some, this looks so good. Okay, I'm gonna devour this, and then we will be on our way. Admittedly, it is a different day now. It is Saturday, October 17th. Do you like my skeleton man? I need to give him a name. This is really bright because the sun just came out. It is a partly cloudy day here in Texas, back in my Halloween town. Do you notice my earrings? They're little pumpkins. They're so cute. They were like $4. I saw them at Walmart and I was like, you know what? That's happening. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the last place we left off was at Barnes & Noble. And I'm gonna be honest, because I left so late in the afternoon, I ended up driving home in rush hour because apparently everything is just like back to normal here in Texas. And that was exhausting. I forgot how much I hate driving, and also driving in traffic, which is exactly why I work for myself. So it is officially week 3 of Preptober, and I have my preparatory workbook right here from my Write 50K in 30 Days e-course, which, by the way, is still on sale for half off through the month of October, as well as my story mind mapping workshop. You can find the links for both of those in the description box below. And week 3 is all about the fail-safe inspiration. But I'm going to be doing some of that because that's more of the aesthetics and inspiration. Again, if you want to know more about what that fail-safe inspiration for writing your book in 30 days entails, then you'll have to get the course. Wink, wink. But today I'm going to be diving deeper into storyboarding. And I decided to do this in week 3 because week 2 was the deep dive. And so I want to take what I have in my story mind map and move that onto a storyboard. So if you remember last week, I got these poster boards from the Dollar Tree. I got 3 of them for Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And then I also bought this multicolored set of Post-it notes from Target. You can also use index cards, which I'm gonna be using white index cards first, just to get all of my ideas from my story mind map, from my workbook, onto those note cards, and then I'm going to organize them by color because again, this is like that inspiration, the aesthetics, the fail-safe inspo. This is how I stay organized, but still allow for creative flow in my manuscript and in my writing process. To do this, you don't have to have exactly what I have here. I believe the last time I storyboarded, I used an old cardboard box, like a moving box, and cut that kind of like down one of the sides and just laid it out. And it basically looked like this, you know, but it was all attached. I have my storyboard somewhere around here, but I will link that up in the cards for you, that video, in case you want to watch that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you don't have index cards, but you do have printer paper or other types of Post-its or any kind of paper like from a journal, and you want to cut it into squares, you can do that. I find that having everything, this is like my South Node in Virgo, but just I'm very detail oriented and I like to have everything kind of matching, all the same size. So I like to go buy my supplies, but by no means does that mean you also have to go buy yours. You can use what you have around the house and you will still be successful when it comes to storyboarding. So like I mentioned, I have my completed Preptober workbook and also my story mind map in here as well. So I'm going to be using that to then transfer that information onto white index cards. And then I will be using my color coordinating system, which I'll explain to you what the colors stand for, or at least like the main staples, I guess you could say, because there's a lot of different ways that you can use different colored Post-it notes. So we're gonna go over that. I'll tell you my staples for the colors, and then I will start putting them onto my actual storyboard. So I'm gonna move the camera because we're gonna do this on the floor, and that way there's just more room.
Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill in the cracks that were spreading in my mind, but I was all out of hope, lost in an endless maze. The emptiness had unfolded just like a void, but you broke the coldness somehow.
Okay, so I've got my 3 poster boards for Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and you can go ahead and label those if you have your poster boards separate as well. And then you probably noticed I was writing on these colored index cards, and that's more of a reminder for me as to what each color represents, which we're gonna get into that in just a minute. But first, your white index card, these are all of your plot or scene ideas that you have from your story mind map, that you have from your Write 50K in 30 Days workbook, or if you don't have either of those, just any ideas that come to you, any plot ideas, scene ideas, you just want to get them all written down on white index cards. So that's step 1. Then we move on to the colored index cards or the Post-its. So in pink, I'm going to write down or transfer any of the ideas that I have that correlate to a subplot. So any ideas, any scenes that are on these white cards that are more of a subplot will go on the pink cards instead. And then we're gonna do the same thing with those white index cards except for the main plot. I probably should have started with the yellow card, but this is just the order I was doing it in. So I usually start with the main plot, that's gonna be in yellow, and then any subplot ideas are going to go in pink. Now the next color I have is orange, and this is for foreshadowing. Now on your white index cards, you may not have any ideas that pertained to foreshadowing. When I'm writing a series, I tend to already have a lot of ideas before I even start writing the book about how I'm going to foreshadow certain things, or if I've foreshadowed something in a previous book, then I can take whatever that piece of foreshadowing was and put it on an orange index card, because eventually what you're gonna do is place all of these colored index cards strategically on your poster boards for Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And the colors help you visually see how everything ties in together and what ideas are for what plot or what subplot, or if it's foreshadowing, or my green card, the gaps. And you may not notice the gaps. This is something that you can do later. Maybe when you thought of an idea and you put it on the white index card, you realize that there's going to be a gap, or you're foreseeing that particular plot point, that scene could hold a potential problem in the future. So that's exactly why we have this category on our storyboard. So this for me is my method of outlining before I'm writing the book. Once I am writing the book and I have my different chapters, I do have an outline that summarizes each chapter and what's happening. But before I get to writing, I like to have my outline in more of a storyboard format. I like it in the mind map because that gives me a bird's eye view of what's going on in my story. And then I like to transfer all of that information over to a storyboard. And I know that this method of outlining may not work for everyone, but outlining the regular way, if you will, like academic style, just reminds me of when I was in school and having to do research papers, and I hated outlining. Hated it. And so for me, if I'm going to outline, which is something that it's not really that fun for me, I always ask if there's any part of my writing process that isn't fun or enjoyable. I ask myself how I can make it more fun, how I can make it more enjoyable. And storyboarding is something that I love to do. It works really well as an outline for me. And also this way I can move the cards around. I can add new ideas and see how it fits. If I find a gap, I can write it down on a green card and stick that in there and figure it out and just see how it all flows together right in front of me. Instead of like scrolling through a Word document, that doesn't work for me in terms of my creativity and my flow, but storyboarding does. So this is why I use this method to outline my books versus your normal Word document. And the last thing I want to point out before I get started doing all this and get the really awesome B-roll that I know everybody wants to see is that I call these colored cards bridge cards. If you think of these as like building the bridge for your story, you're going to need multiple bridges to cross over, to add onto, to extend in order to get to your final destination, which is the end of your story and the resolution, like what's going to happen at the very end. And so if you don't know that, building these bridges can be really hard. That's why personally I like to work backwards. So I start with Act 3 and then I work my way backwards. And that also really helps you with the whole first chapter blues, you know, when you feel like your first chapter sucks or you don't know what to write or you don't know how it's going to fit in. Oftentimes it's the first chapter we want to write last so we can really get the feel for what the entire book is going to be about, because that's the beautiful thing about writing is that it's flowing and it's ever changing and you can add and subtract as much as you want. And so the first chapter you write at the very beginning before the whole book is finished may not be the one you keep, and that's perfectly fine. I cannot tell you how many first chapters I've completely scrapped and rewritten once the entire book is finished. So I'm gonna get started on this, and unfortunately, because it is a story idea, something that isn't published, that isn't out there yet, I will have to turn the cards over, so I'm gonna write on them in just normal ink so that way you can't see through it. But I will show you how it's laid out, although these are all gonna be flipped over, but that way you can kind of just see the color scheme and what's sort of happening on the storyboards, because I know that part may be a little bit confusing. So you're not going to be able to see what's actually written on the cards, but you'll at least know what the cards mean, like what their category is, and then see how they're laid out on my storyboard. Although yours may look completely different from mine, as it should, and that's perfectly okay. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I just finished up with this, I guess you could say, first draft of my storyboard, although your storyboard is always going to be a work in progress. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I just want to kind of show you the color situation and what's going on so you can get a better idea of how to do your own storyboard. All right, let's take this off of the tripod. My outfit really matches, doesn't it? Okay, anyways. Ugh. Stand up with a with a bum ankle. I have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. You probably noticed I started down here with Act 3. So again, the yellow cards are my main plot, the pink cards are subplots, orange is foreshadowing, and green are any gaps. So you can see I have my ending pretty much figured out here, although there is a gap in my main plot. At the end here, there's some foreshadowing that ties back into a foreshadowing up here in the first act. So that's why it's good to have multiple colored index cards. That's why I have so many of these, because I like to organize it by the actual subplot or the actual piece of foreshadowing that I'm doing, especially if it's being foreshadowed multiple times in different ways. I like to represent that in different colors. It just makes it clearer for me. So you can see here, this is good obviously because the main plot, I know how that's going to end. I know how the subplot is going to end. So right here, I'm aware that there are quite a few gaps to get from Act 2, where you can see these green cards. There's 3, and those 3 correspond right here. So I need to figure out what's going on in that part of Act 3. And of course up here in Act 2, I'm building up a lot with the main plot, as you can see, as well as the subplot. There's not much foreshadowing going on in Act 2, so that might be something that I need to add in, but there's a lot of, you'll see all the orange cards, there's a lot of foreshadowing in Act 1. So especially if this is a standalone book, I like to have a lot of my foreshadowing in the first part of the book and like the early part of Act 2, and not to do too much foreshadowing in Act 2, but to start to get to, you know, to the crux of everything, to the resolution. So yeah, and then there is Act 1, obviously introducing a lot of my main plot, introducing the subplot, and a lot of foreshadowing happening, and I do have one gap here with one of my subplots. So that is how I storyboard. I should mention that this is for a single point of view book. So my last storyboard had a bunch of different points of view because it was for the Shadow Crown series, but this particular book is just one point of view. So this method works great. Having the different colored cards works great in this sense for a single POV book. But you'll notice in my storyboarding video for the Shadow Crown series with multiple POVs, that's a little different in terms of the colors. They weren't, it was more so color coded by characters, so I could follow that train of thought. Although I would probably use this method instead. And yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to work on. That's an adjustment I'll make as I am mapping out the rest of the books in that series. So I am going to go ahead and sign off here because I'm feeling inspired, and I think I actually want to go ahead and write one of these scenes because I've had one just kind of stirring up here. Thank you so much for tuning in today, for being here and coming along with me on my storyboarding adventure. Don't forget to check out the description box below for more information on the Write 50K in 30 Days e-course and also the Story Mind Mapping Workshop. Both are 50% off until the end of October. Let's write your book. I mean, how do you not want to do all this? This is so much fun. To me, this is the second best part of writing. Writing is like my number one. I love to write, but doing all of this prep work and like mind mapping and storyboarding, it's so much fun. Especially if you're a visual learner, you like the visual aesthetics, it's pretty high up there on the list. As always, I appreciate you being here. If you could hit that thumbs up button as well as that subscribe button, that would help me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next vlog. Week 4. Ah! Bye.